What's going on, everybody? Wilson here, your spiritual hype man. I'm super happy to be back, and I have a special guest today, Mr. Haines. What's going on, Mr. Haines? Tell him what's
Oh
up.
man, so good to be with you, brother.
Like
Happy
what?
to dive in.
Yeah, likewise, likewise. Now, Mr. Haines, we've all right. So, real quick, let's just give him. Like, can we give him your entire title in terms of what you do currently, and then we'll go into how we met, and then for new listeners, because I'm sure there's gonna be new listeners because you're on. We'll give them a kind of a breakdown of what NCUID means to me, and then the thought process.
Yeah, I would say that I'd call myself a transformative coach. This is what I do to create the income. Coaching changed my life, and now I get to pay it forward and take people deep into themselves and help them kind of rewrite their own personal life story.
I love that, man. I love that. I love that. Definitely aligned, definitely in sync, right? On that path. I've had the hardest time really figuring out how to put that into words, and you're doing an amazing job. But we'll get into that in a second. So, for any new listeners that obviously follow Mr. Haynes are probably listening, the nothing changed until you do concept is really just the thought of influence, thoughts, emotion, then drive an action. That action then creates an outcome. And so in throughout our lives from the day we're born to the day we cross over the rainbow bridge. um there's all these decision points that we come to, and then when we make these decisions, it gets us to these outcomes. And then if we're not happy with these outcomes, which I think is very aligned with your story in terms of what we're going to share with people, you find yourself in these outcomes that you just all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? I'm not happy with myself. I'm not feeling these feelings that I want to feel. And then really it's reverse engineering this concept of what was the influence, what was the thought that came from that influence, what was the emotion that drove that decision, then brought me to this outcome, this current situation. And then if we go backwards, figuring out, okay, how do we tweak the decision point, the emotion, the thought, and then the influence. And if we can do these things, then we can start adjusting again when things become cyclical and you find yourself in a similar situation. Then you can make a different decision, which then changes the trajectory of your life over a long period of time, of course. Unless the doctor tells you, you need to stop smoking or else you're going to die tomorrow. That sort of sometimes happens. um so that's the concept of nothing changes until you do. Mr. Haynes, let's get into it, man. Just let me know, like, let's just give a big macro level for people that are listening, where you are now, or if you want to start, maybe we can do Tintin Quarantino it. I guess that would be now. We can go all the way back and then bring us to the now, whatever you want, whatever you're feeling.
Mm,
I'm excited.
yeah, well, you know what? I think starting from the beginning and how I arrived to where I'm at today is useful. I got into the mortgage business when I was 20. I looked around and I had a friend who always seemed to have more money and more time than anybody that I knew our age. And I asked him one day, I'm like, "Do you got rich parents? Like, what's going on?" And he said, "No, I'm in the mortgage business." And I said, "Well, cool. Can you teach me?" The inquiry of that at 20, and showed up on a Monday and put in 16 years. And I remember, '08 was kind of a recession. It was a really challenging time for a lot of people, and I really struggled. It was basically a rock bottom for me. I remember not even being able to afford my car payment, and the repo guys knocking on the door just after Christmas. And so that was like the ultimate low for me. But I managed to, scrape by and eventually got surrounded with some people that they were doing well, even despite the recession. And I got to kind of be around this energy and listen to how their minds worked. And fast forward a little bit, deepening into my relationship with them. My first son was born, and all the guys around me are like, it's a good time for you right now to get a coach. So what is that? And it was the first time I ever really took a good hard look in the mirror as a man. And am I what I want my son to be? Am I the footsteps that I want him to follow in? And the answer to that question was a hard no. And so, fast forward, I began a coaching journey. I worked with this man in a company called Building Champions for 3 years, and got into some more high ticket business coaching and built a really sizable organization. And everybody around me is like, "Look at how great you're doing. You're successful in our eyes, and you've got all these, piles of cash and all of this stuff. And, I 2016 had some deep spiritual journeys that took me really, really deep into the inner realms, if you will. And really what came through for me was is that I was kind of living a lie, and I wasn't living from the heart. I was accumulating and building this empire all for the sake of trying to be worthy as a man in our culture.
Mm.
And I knew there was some deeper gifts to give. And as I began to live a more contemplative life and ask the deeper questions and go on this spiritual path, that ended up leading me to beginning teaching and guiding and coaching. And fast forward, I burned my previous business to the ground, and now all I do is guide people into deeper alignment within themselves, and so that they can begin to create more harmonious experiences here while they're on this planet. And I do that mostly from the one-on-one perspective, and on occasion I run, group events for men as well. It's been a blessing to be able to share some of this knowledge and watch people expand in really beautiful ways.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Okay, well, that's the episode. Thanks again for listening. Thank you guys. All right, well, let's dive a little. So that's the macro. So let's dive a little bit into if we can go back as far as what was your influence growing up, as far as not did you have much, not have much? What was the driver behind I got to go out there and get this, build this sort of wealth or this facade of like what I think I need to be doing at 20 years old. Where'd that come from?
Mm. Well, I would say that my parents were pretty normal, blue collar, excuse me, middle class family, and we
That's a
never
good
really
one.
had a much. Yeah, I would hear money doesn't grow on trees, things like that. The
Yeah.
standard programming there, and and I never really got to see my parents live abundantly and enjoy what they did bring in, and it was always saving it for tomorrow. One day we'll enjoy life, and so I don't necessarily know if it was me wanting to escape that than it was getting my foot in the door of an industry that was very much about hustling, grinding, going after it, the financial world. So I think that it wasn't necessarily an influence from my parents, but the industry itself is kind of what drew me into that kind of frame of mind
Mm.
of accumulating.
So was there a drive to make more money though, or no? Or it was more of just a drive to like go do something that's sort of I was watching the Wolf of Wall Street yesterday and I was like,
Mm,
was it more of that wanting to be around that or maybe a combination? I don't know. Like, because sometimes I feel like, for me personally, like, it's similar, like, grew up in a way where it was very scarce mindset. So like for the longest, I've always had the mindset of like, I gotta go get this and I gotta go make it financially. So then I can, like you said, finally enjoy it, or I can finally like rest. Um, so yeah, so I guess that's my question to you. Is it, or is it more of a mix of like, maybe it is the absence of that or coming from that sort of thing and then still liking that environment?
yeah. Well, certainly, a desire to make more money, to be able to accumulate more things, was something that caught my attention. And I think from the deeper spiritual perspective is man is always on a pursuit of freedom and sovereignty, whether
Mhm.
he knows it or not.
Mm.
And that happens in our culture, the as the chasing of money, because money is seen as the thing that's going to
Right.
free us, right? And so, yeah, I think it was a little bit of everything.
Hmm. Yeah, crazy. Crazy. All right. And then so once you got in, I obviously you were successful on it and there was a bit of success and then there was that 2008, you said 2008.
Hmm.
Okay. So take me a little bit through that. Like as far as the emotional, like going into something that was going to do well and then literally having, the repo guy at your door.
Yeah.
Was that one of the toughest times in your career or life during that stage?
It was, and I never made much money. I got in the business in '06, and
Hmm.
so I was still kind of figuring it out. And yeah, '08 was such a pinch for me that, and it was the first time since I had gotten a driver's license that I didn't have a car, and the amount of
Right.
freedom that walked out the door that day was really big for me. And it was a very depressing time, and I felt like a failure. You know, it really affected me significantly.
Mm. Yeah. And what like if you were to name that feeling, what is that feeling?
Yeah, maybe inadequate,
Mm.
feeling of just I'm not enough.
Mm. Yeah, I felt that. I felt
Yeah.
that too. Yeah, it's all right. So how did you get how do you work through that? Because sometimes even for people that may be going through that now, I feel like it's easier to say like, hey man, it's only temporary. And I tell that to people. I share that with people. It's like, look, these things are temporary. We gotta move. We gotta keep moving forward or make that progress. But it's hard, especially when you're in it, to like right to sort of separate yourself from like the I guess the conscious moment to like the macro level of like, okay, yeah, this shit is only temporary. We just got to keep going.
Mhm.
How did that work with you?
Well,
Like, what was that transition?
yeah, I mean, I'm 22,
Right,
23. I had little self-awareness in
right.
those days, but looking back, like it was a really beautiful catalyst for me to say, hey,
Mm,
you really need to figure out how to make this work. You can't just jump in something it taught me how to move with much more intention. But,
mm,
from the tactical level, I swallowed my pride and got a little part-time sales job for like 6 months just to pad the bank accounts while I figured out how to build the mortgage business back up. Um, so yeah, I think that was enough to get me by and kind of get me out of that really survival state.
mhm.
And I think from that place, I could think a little bit more clearly. And it also, being in this kind of part-time phone sales job, it reminded me of why I wanted to work for myself. And so that
Yeah.
was also a
Okay.
catalyst in and of
Cool.
itself.
Yeah, and these things lead to that, right? Like I feel like these little moments then push you to do something, and they kind of lead to your next thing, like your next outcome. So again, influence, thoughts, emotions, decisions, different outcomes, and then go into your other one, go into your next outcome, which is ultimately the cycle of again, what's the influence, thought, emotion, action, decision there. I love that, man. How long before like the repo man came to you were like, all right, I got to go do something, and you took the job? Like, was there a time of like feeling like wanting to feel down and like just kind of being in that? Because I know sometimes that happens with me or has happened with me, a lot less now, but it also happens with people where like you kind of get to there and then you sort of like stay in it because it like kind of feels good, but not good. But it's like this thing where you're like, I just swallow my pity. I'm just gonna be here and lay down in like a cocoon.
I would say in those moments, I probably was quite paralyzed.
Mm,
I didn't really know how to build the business. I knew in those moments, the technical knowledge of what my job entailed, but like going out and bringing in clients was the thing that I lacked
mm,
in those times. And so yeah, I would say that I wasn't very resourceful in
mm,
those days. I didn't reach out for help from the right people. I think that it was more of a paralysis, that economic contraction, I just kind of froze and didn't know what to do with it.
mm. And then what happened?
Yeah. Well, yeah, handing over the keys certainly made its impact. It was like, okay, this was a good hard look at reality right now. And it had me in action. I said, how am I going to create a solution for this? And it really was to go and find a job. I'd always been good at phone sales. That was how I
Mm,
cut my teeth when I was in my mid-teens. And so I got a job doing that. And that literally got me out of that survival state, like I said, and got me back to a place where I felt like I could keep myself afloat. And the market started to turn around a little bit, and I started to gravitate towards people that seemed like they knew what they were doing. And there's something about being around in an environment of people that are doing something. They're
yeah.
making movement and progress that I kind of like by osmosis began to start to create results.
Yeah, fantastic. And how did that aha moment come? Like when you realize that, like when you get these aha moments, you're like, you know what? This does make sense. I should be around these type of people more often.
Yeah.
for you or like personally, right? Because I think we've all come to, again, depending on where you are in your journey, I think there's these aha moments that we look back and we're like, oh yeah, that did make sense. Why didn't I think of that sooner?
I would always say in those years, it was always looking back for the
Yeah.
lesson. And
Okay.
I didn't know it at the moment. I mean, the energy of people that were producing and having some success, like there was something magnetic about it. So I
Hmm.
probably felt that
Yeah.
in my body. I was like, ah, this is the environment that I need to be in. It just feels good. But I don't think that I really grasped the concept that we are, what do they say? We're an average of the five people that we spend the majority of our time with. And
Right.
and I can look back and say, you know what? Actually, what a blessing it was to have been around the people
Ooh,
that I was.
that's
And
special. I like that.
yeah, and for people listening right now, so is the environment that you're in conducive?
Mm.
Because I realize a lot of, corporate environments, there's a lot of negativity and it's just kind of like this ecosystem that kind of drains you and we got to be really mindful of that, especially if we're not, really truly the master of our own inner worlds, these external kind of factors
Yeah.
can play a role and
Yeah.
in a negative
Absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. Mold that influence, man. That's what it is. The constructs of these, made up constructs from other people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? From
Hmm.
other people. It's crazy. Okay, cool. So continuing the timeline, then you said you had mentioned then you had your first kiddo.
Yeah. Hmm.
Very sure. Okay, so take me a little bit through that. Like obviously relationship into, your first kiddo, and then how did that become? Because I know that also, a lot of people also say like, wow, when you have a kid, there's like a there's something there that all of a sudden gives you almost like an awakening of like, okay, what are we doing? Because this is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a huge moment. That's a spiritual experience, seeing the life that you created come into this world, and now just like looking into my son's eyes and seeing that he's witnessing me as his guide in this world of form.
Mm.
And and my job to be the best steward of this tiny being as I can. I had enough awareness in that moment to know that I needed some more help and some more, some more support. And a couple months later, that's when I hired a coach. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And so was that the connection of like, hey, I need to take I guess my level of awareness is that what, because I would assume that's what a coach does, right? Like someone that helps you, motivates you, and gets you to this level of like expanding your thoughts or perspective to then push you, right, to help you sort of get into your what the person actually is or wants to be, right?
Hmm. Or doesn't even know that they
Mm.
want to be. And so I think a good coach is a really clear reflection, a mirror, someone who can help you see your blind spots so that you can kind of continue to expand past your edges. And in the process, we generally discover more of ourselves that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
So incredibly powerful. I mean, work with this man for 3 years, and yeah, it was really a blessing because it helped me start to align my life with what felt like my purpose at the time.
Mm,
There
mm,
was no more just kind of existing. There was actually a mission that I was moving forward, and he helped me see that, and it was very much a guiding light for me.
mm. Yeah. So you started moving with intention, which you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. What was the biggest aha moment when you first crossed over from, sort of doing this thing on your own to actually having a coach?
Yeah,
What do you
this
think?
one's good. The first thing that's coming through for me, and mind you, this is 12, 13 years ago,
Denver, you look you
was
look you look great, bro. You look great. You're like 102. It looks great. Like not older than 30 here.
yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was writing my eulogy was an
Wow.
exercise my coach
Oh,
had me do right off the bat. It was like, what are people gonna say at your funeral?
that's huge.
And that was so
I got one of
profound
these.
for
Yeah.
me in the moment.
Ugh. Fuck. That's a great one. Why do
Yeah,
they don't teach that in school. That's
yeah,
a that's a, that's a hey kids, write your eulogy. No, but that's huge. Wow. So that was your big huh? Like
absolutely.
that's
Because it was
awesome.
it was in that moment I was wanting to reflect back and really
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
understand how I wanted people to see me and
Mm.
remember me. It was just a huge moment of awareness. And I'm sure, I would rewrite the eulogy in a different way now with
Right.
my, expanded awareness, but it was enough. It was a huge catalyst for me.
Ooh. Yeah, yeah, that hit
And
me.
yeah, I think that there was this part of being in a long-term relationship, with this man. He knew a lot about me, and he knew we really started to dive in, and he knew where I would get stuck because he just knew me,
Yeah.
and so that was really useful.
And he helped kind of he helped kept pushing, right? He kept trying to
Hmm.
figure out, let's get deeper.
Yep.
That's great. Okay. That was good, man. That was like a gold nugget for anybody that's listening and made it to that timestamp. You're welcome. Yeah, what a good one. Um, okay, so let me ask again. So what about then? So you said you worked with him for 3 years. How did you know, or did the coach know, as far as like, hey, our time has come. Go do your thing. Like
Yeah.
how does that
That's a
how do you get to that?
Well, I think my awareness expanded that I needed to be supported in a different way.
Mm-mm-mm.
Some people and some of my mentors at the time that were outside of my professional coaching agreement would say, there some coaches have a lifespan of 2 to 3 years with you, and then it's time to move on to the next stage of learning, whatever that is. And so I can't say in those moments other than I knew I needed more business tactics and systems, and there was a more high ticket business coaching organization that I had my eyes set on that I wanted to get into. And I had to make at least $250,000 a year to get into this program. And so by that time I had reached that. um, yeah, I knew that it was time to transition and move more specifically into the business. So I got myself aligned. I know where my purpose is. I'm able to keep myself accountable. The organization that I had built had grown to a certain level, and now it was like, all right, now we really need some high ticket
Mm.
business coaching from people who have done it, to get me to the next level. And so that was the next stepping stone for me.
Cool. And then so I guess between having the kiddo and then the coach, you started transit like you really started building your business,
Hmm.
your mortgage business. Is that what was going on? And then that's when you reached that 250,000 status, I would say, or um okay. Well, so let's talk a little bit about business. What were some of the ahas that you got, from that beginning to all of a sudden establishing the empire? Because you did really well, right? Obviously, you crushed it. Uh, so for business, what were some of these things that like you probably educate some of your people with, like to think about, or is it processes? Is it the client? Like obviously, there's a combination of all, but what was it for you?
Yeah, for me, it was knowing what my zone of genius was
Mm.
and the parts of my organization that weren't the highest and best use of my time, and to slowly hiring people around myself to take care and facilitate some of those other things. And the less that I needed to do that was not like a dollar producing activity, the more time I could generate more clients and more referral partners and all of that. But I think then it comes, leadership. Leadership really comes to the forefront when you start hiring people. Like, do these people really understand how the vision of their own life plays into what we're doing together? Is what we're doing together going to help them achieve their mission
Right.
in life? And so I floundered for a while. Like I went through, a lot of employees, and I lacked the leadership to train uh, people effectively. And of course, learned that was the school of hard knocks there. But it was nice to be in the business coaching company because I got to learn a lot of tactics and strategies and how to show up better for my people. And yeah, we did 2.5 years in that high ticket program, and built almost tripled the business that I was doing before, which was really a blessing. And also the systems and the structure that had come from that high ticket business coaching, had me also be able to have a life. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
making giant piles of cash and all of that, but I could also take 3 weeks off to go to Africa and summit Kilimanjaro without having to check my cell phone. So it was really a blessing that I was able to create what I did.
Yeah, dude, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible to go from, the repo man to Kilimanjaro. Like, what I mean? That should be the title of your book, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, crazy cool, man. So and the other thing that I would say, like, bring you your flowers or whatever vocabulary word you want to throw in there, is the fact that you went and did these things for yourself, but also brought it back to the people, which is big, as far as being able to not just the business tactics, but like what you learn and then how you incorporate that to the team. I think
Hmm.
it's huge. I'm sort of in that growth stage right now, and that's kind of what I'm working on. Like really working on how to, get the team to understand that, like, yo, you guys are it, man. You guys are the people. If this works and we work, then we'll get there.
Hmm.
Which is huge. So yeah, really good. Kudos to you on that. Hmm. So where do we go from here? Okay, because there's still more to the story. So you're at the height of your, like, empire, and then you burn it to the ground.
Hmm.
And then you light a fire to it. You're like, so take us through. Well, okay, a little bit of that transition. The highest peak. So you did a couple of years. You did like 2 years of the high ticket coaching. Is that right?
Yeah, 2.5 years in that program.
Two and
Hmm.
a half years in that program. You're crushing it. You're doing triple what you did when you started. Is this like at your peak almost?
Yeah, I'd say. And I would say in a random series of events, we could call it the universe leaving a breadcrumb trail. But ayahuasca
Yeah.
started to come to me. I had never even heard of this. All of a sudden, it just flooded my awareness, things happening to my friends, coincidences
Yeah.
taking
Will you
place in
share a
my
couple of these?
business.
Can you
Yeah.
give me some details? Like, what was your first, like, what the fuck is this thing? What,
Yeah.
ayahuasca? like
Yeah.
like what?
Yeah, I was not seeking it. I had a friend of mine who called me one day, and I could tell he was noticeably rocked,
Yeah.
and something had shifted in him. And he had told me that he said something crazy like, "I met the creator," and I said, "What are you talking about, you crazy man?" And but I could tell something was vastly different in him. He was
Yeah.
not the same person. Something had shifted, and he told me he did an ayahuasca ceremony, and I'm like, what in the world is that? And a couple weeks later, I'm flying to Costa Rica. I'm on the plane by myself. I'm sitting next to a veteran and I'm like, why you headed to Costa Rica? And he's, oh, I'm gonna go and heal my PTSD. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. How do you do that? And he goes, ayahuasca. And I'm like,
Ayahuasca.
what? What is going on here? So
Yeah.
yeah, I, got connected to some people and yeah, found myself in the Amazon solo, just me and my backpack, and went to a retreat center and spent about 7 days in the jungle and had some ceremonies and saw some things that were what I would say beyond the grasp of words. Words are a clumsy vehicle to try to describe the ineffable.
Oof. Bro,
But
your vocabulary is amazing, by the way. Just side note to everybody. Listen, I'm pretty sure everyone's already picked up on this, but your vocabulary is on point. Affable. That's amazing. You're the man. So
I
yeah,
appreciate
keep
that.
going, keep going.
Well,
So the words just can't do it justice for what you saw.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, because you think about it, words are a vehicle of this dimension, this of the
Mm,
human
mm, mm,
domain.
mm, mm.
We've created language so that we can communicate,
Correct. Yeah.
but wherever I went was not this place.
Mm,
And I felt safe and held, but it was the most profound experience I had ever experienced. And it rocked me so much so that I was confused. I didn't have anybody to help me with integration. I come back to my office 2 days later and nobody understands what I'm even talking about. And so I was depressed for a little while because
mm.
I was asking, what is the meaning of all of this? What did I build all of this for? And while the money was great and it's a useful vehicle here in modernity, I was only doing the thing that I was doing because I wanted to make a lot of money. And that
Right.
to me at that moment, and this kind of new experience of feeling maybe soul, it felt like I was missing the boat. There was something else left in me to give. It was something else that I was supposed to be doing while I'm here in this body, in this world. And yeah, it really rocked me in a profound way.
Crazy, bro. It's insane. Like it's still, I've considered it. I just don't like like I have a little bit of a fear with it because I've done the mushrooms and I've had similar, like there was one day I did like an 8 hour trip. And I was connected. I was connected. I bawled my eyes out and I would cry. I called Patty in and I was like, babe, I was like, this is what life is about. And I just kind of like touched it. Like I felt like understanding that it was the human connection, like the being alive, that helping people feel good about themselves. Like that feeling that you get. There was like this feeling that I just same thing, words I can't just describe it with words, but like understanding that connection, like for the next maybe week or so, I was on this high, bro. Just like nothing other than people and the connection and giving people this feeling matter. That was it. And then, after 2 weeks, you're like, fuck, I gotta pay my bills. but but there is, I would agree with you. Like there is an ethereal sort of connection or like that extra layer where, most of the time we're not connected to.
Yeah.
I tried to find it again, but I don't think I was in the right mind. And I wasn't seeking anything. I was initially more of just trying to like hang out. I was going to try, I was going to put some movies on. We're going to sort of do that sort of scene. But one thing led to another. I went to the bathroom. I looked at the mirror, and next thing you know, it was like 8 hours later. I was just like in this zone of understanding. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
oh,
beautiful.
so then, so you came back. You're looking at everything around you, and you're like, what does this all mean? And I think there's more. And then so what did you decide to do then?
I really withdrew from my organization in a really big way. I said, you guys, I had 5 people on my payroll. They were managing all the operations, and I just kind of spent more time by myself.
Mm,
And I eventually took up a meditation practice, so that I can, be a little bit more contemplative and become more of a witness to my thoughts and the stories that I was telling myself. And it slowed me down enough to start to ask some of those deeper questions. I became a seeker in those days. I wanted to understand the nature of reality. And, as I began to evolve, I started to share a lot of this work with people, my business partners and whatnot. And people really started to make breakthroughs in
mm,
really beautiful, inspiring ways. And I began teaching seminars with a partner of mine in downtown Phoenix, and we'd, fill up a venue with people and talk to them about these concepts and these ways that we could free ourselves from our self-imposed mental prisons. And, people were making breakthroughs in a big way. And at some point in time, someone from the audience pulled me aside and said, "Can I pay you to coach me? Can I pay you to help me make breakthroughs in my life?" And all of a sudden, that was such a profound opening that I could actually earn income by helping people live lives that they never thought possible in this lifetime. And it just was such a heart-centered way of expressing that I began to pursue it. And at some point in time, I knew that I had one foot in, still kind of hanging on to this old identity of Mr. Mortgage Guy, and then I had the other foot in. Got a couple clients that I'm coaching, and eventually I heard God or source or whatever you want to call this thing say it's time. And I
mm.
did a little ceremony and burnt my license, and probably all of my colleagues were like, "You're crazy." And but I knew I had to do it. I had to do it. And here we are living. It feels like my dharma. And yeah, what a journey it has been to get here.
Yeah, it's amazing. And thank you for that. And obviously we only have a couple minutes left. We're gonna have to do a second episode Usually when they're good, we got to do a second episode. But for I guess last words right now. If someone is going through something, maybe something that you've gone through or that you've seen repetitively through a cycle, what would what would be some of those words that you would provide to them?
We're living in the feeling of our thinking,
Ooh,
and the nature of what it is to be human, the deepest core of our being is wholeness, is bliss, is harmony. And so when we're not experiencing that, we need to check in on what the stories that we're telling ourselves, and perhaps that takes us further into the knowing and understanding of ourselves. And there's some kind of correlation with our inner world and the external reality that we experience. And I would say just keep asking yourself what's possible for you to experience in this lifetime. And that to me just creates this opening of potential.
wow. Okay, so where do I sign up? Okay,
Yes.
look, we have less than a minute. We're gonna put your information in everywhere and everywhere. So all your links will be available if you do want to talk with Mr. Haines and even just potentially get coached, which I think is an amazing opportunity. You can definitely click on the link. You can figure stuff out. We're gonna do a second episode. Are you good with one? Are you good with doing a second episode?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All
Yeah.
right, awesome. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Keep crushing it. I hope something hit. And just remember, it's all in your heads. Keep crushing it. And don't forget, nothing changes until you do. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Peace.